A waitress was beaten and cast out with her baby, until a billionaire took off his jacket and wrapped her. She stood shivering in the cold, her baby wrapped in nothing but a thin towel. Moments ago, she'd been dragged out of the diner where she worked, bruised, humiliated, and fired for standing up to a cruel customer. No coat, no home, just the icy wind and the soft whimper of her newborn against her chest. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly yellow glow across the scuffed linoleum floor. It was nearly midnight, and the diner smelled like burnt coffee and desperation. Grease clung to the air like an unwanted guest. In a corner booth, a group of loud, overdressed men laughed far too hard at jokes that weren't funny. Their watches gleamed, their hair slicked back, their arrogance suffocating. Behind the counter, Emily moved with quiet urgency, wiping down the surface for the 10th time. Her apron was faded, her shoes worn through at the soles. Every muscle in her body ached, but she wore a soft, practiced smile, a mask she had perfected over countless sleepless nights. Her eyes, however, told the truth. They held exhaustion, not just from the long shift, but from life itself. Her baby was tucked away in the staff room, wrapped in an old blanket in a makeshift crib fashioned out of a laundry basket and soft towels. It wasn't ideal, but she had no choice. There was no sitter, no family, no fallback plan. Just Emily, her daughter, and a quiet, fierce will to survive. "Hey, sweetheart," slurred one of the men from the booth, waving a whiskey glass in her direction. "How about a real smile, huh? You look like someone's pet dog just died." Emily forced herself to breathe. "Just bringing your check, sir," she said, placing the receipt gently on the table. "Sir." He chuckled, elbowing the man next to him. "Hear that, boys? She called me sir. That's rich. You don't need to be so formal, honey. You're just a waitress." The others laughed, eyes gleaming with the thrill of cruelty. Emily said nothing, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for their empty plates. "Bet she brings that kid of hers here every night just to squeeze a few more hours on the clock," the drunk added, voice raised now, wanting the whole diner to hear. "Heard it crying earlier. You hiding a little rat in the back, girl?" Something inside Emily snapped. Not loudly, not violently, just a quiet, cold shift. She straightened, her tired eyes locking with his. "You don't get to talk about my child," she said, voice low but steady. The booth fell silent for a beat. The drunk's expression hardened. "Excuse me," I said. She repeated, louder this time. "You don't get to talk about my child. Eat your food, or leave." The diner held its breath. Then the manager came barreling from the kitchen. Thick and red-faced, he looked like a boiling kettle about to pop. "Emily," he shouted, storming over. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" She turned to him, heart pounding. "He insulted my baby. I'm not going to stand here and let." "I don't care," the manager snapped. "You don't mouth off to paying customers. You're lucky anyone even eats here with you dragging that damn baby around." Emily flinched, eyes burning. "I'm done with your drama," he continued. "You're done. Get your stuff and get out." The words landed like a slap. The drunk men chuckled to themselves, satisfied. Emily's mouth opened, then closed. Her hands clenched into fists. "At least let me get her blanket," she whispered. The manager threw his hand toward the door. "Now, out." A few plates clattered as Emily brushed past the counter. She didn't cry, not yet. Not in front of them. She moved quickly into the back, lifting her baby, still sleeping, from the basket. She kissed her daughter's forehead, trying to steady her own breathing. The blanket was gone. Someone had taken it. Or maybe it had fallen. There was no time to search. She wrapped her coat around the baby as best she could and walked out into the freezing night. The door slammed behind her, the sharp sound echoing louder than any insult. The cold hit her like a slap, harsh and unforgiving. The wind snatched at her hair as she stepped off the diner's front stoop, clutching her baby tight to her chest. Her feet, soaked from earlier snowmelt, were already beginning to numb. She walked to the edge of the sidewalk and sat down on a bench that hadn't been cleaned in years. Lights from the diner still flickered in her peripheral vision, taunting her. Inside, warmth. Inside, noise. Inside, people. Out here, nothing but dark. Her baby stirred, letting out a weak cry. Emily tightened her grip, trying to shelter her child with her own body. They had humiliated her, cast her out like garbage. And all for defending her daughter, her only reason for breathing. For a long moment, she sat there, silent, frozen, Forgotten. The street was quiet at this hour. A few cars passed. None stopped. People glanced at her from the warmth of their vehicles, but no one looked long enough to really see her. A mother. A fighter. A woman with nowhere else to go. She looked up at the sky, gray, starless, and let the wind sting her cheeks. The baby let out another soft cry. Emily bent down, humming a lullaby. Her voice cracked. It didn't help. The baby was cold. So was she. She adjusted the coat around the baby again, but it wasn't enough. The lining was thin. She'd planned to replace it next month, if she made enough tips. But now, there wouldn't be another shift. There wouldn't be another paycheck. Just the empty promise of hope slipping further and further out of reach. She pulled the baby closer, whispering apologies. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." The neon sign above the diner buzzed faintly behind her, flashing half-lit letters, "Open 24 hours." But for her, every door had just slammed shut, and winter had only begun. Emily sits on a bench near the diner, clutching her baby with shaking hands. Her coat was left inside, and the baby is barely wrapped in a towel. Passers-by ignore her, some glance in pity, others avoid her completely. Her thoughts spiral. She recalls how she ended up here, abandoned by her baby's father, working double shifts to survive. The baby's whimpers grow softer from the cold. Just as she begins to lose hope, a sleek black car pulls up nearby. She doesn't notice it at first, until footsteps approach. Underscore. Underscore the icy bench bit through Emily's skirt as if punishing her for existing. Her legs were folded tight beneath her, desperate to retain whatever heat remained in her shivering frame. She didn't feel the bench anymore, only the ache in her bones and the growing stillness in her arms. Her baby stirred faintly, but even that movement was sluggish. Her blouse was soaked at the sleeves where she'd cradled her baby tight, shielding her from the cruel wind. The baby's tiny fingers peeked out from beneath a tattered towel she'd found in the diner kitchen earlier that day. It was barely enough to dry dishes, now it was all that stood between her child and the biting cold. The streets buzzed in the distance. A honk. A laugh. Life carried on. Just not here, not on this sidewalk where Emily sat, invisible to the world. She shifted, trying to block the wind with her body, arms aching from hours of holding her daughter close. A woman walked by wearing a red pea coat and boots that clicked confidently against the sidewalk. She glanced down, her eyes briefly locking with Emily's before flicking away just as quickly. Her lips tightened. She didn't stop. Another passerby crossed the street entirely to avoid the sight. Emily didn't blame them. She knew what she looked like, cheeks flushed from cold and shame, hair a windblown mess, shoes scuffed from a day of running back and forth on cracked diner tiles. She had once walked past people like this herself. She had told herself it was someone else's problem. Now she was the problem. Her baby let out a soft, pitiful sound, not a full cry, just a trembling whimper. That frightened Emily more than anything. Crying was normal. Crying was healthy. Silence wasn't. She pulled her daughter closer, rocking her gently, whispering, "Just hold on, baby, please." The memory of the diner came crashing back, how the customer's drink had spilled, how she'd apologized while balancing 2 plates, how his mocking voice had called her trash, how the manager didn't even blink when siding against her, how she'd been shoved, screamed at, and thrown out like garbage, how the door had slammed behind her, her coat still on a hook inside, her dignity left behind with it. And now she was here. Her thoughts spiraled deeper. What if the baby got sick? What if this night ended not in another beginning, but in something final, something permanent? She looked up at the glowing sign of the diner. Warm light spilled from the windows, mocking her. Laughter and the clinking of dishes sounded muffled through the glass. No one inside even glanced her way. Her teeth chattered. The cold was creeping in. She tried to rub the baby's back through the towel, but her fingers felt foreign, stiff, and red. A man walked by wearing headphones, nodding to music. He didn't even look down. Emily felt her breath falter. The air was too thin, too sharp. Everything was narrowing. A single tear slipped down her cheek and disappeared into her sleeve. Not from pain, not from anger. From something deeper, a bone-deep weariness. Her head dropped slightly, her body curling tighter around her child. The city didn't care. It never had. And then somewhere, Faintly, the low hum of an engine. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just a smooth glide. She didn't look up at first. Cars passed all the time. But this one slowed. It stopped. She didn't notice the door open. She only noticed when the air around her shifted. Just a little, like someone had stepped too close. Footsteps crunched softly against the pavement, deliberate, careful. But she didn't look up. She was too tired. Too defeated. People stopped sometimes, to take a photo, to post about her, not to help. But this presence didn't move away. It lingered. Then a voice, deep, but not unkind. "Excuse me." Emily flinched slightly, her back tightening. The voice came again. "Miss, are you all right?" Still she didn't look up. Her eyes stayed on her baby. Her mouth parted, but no words came. Her voice had shrunk inside her throat. A pause. "You don't look safe out here. Is there someone I can call?" She finally tilted her head, just slightly, enough to see a man's shoes, polished leather, spotless even on a dirty sidewalk. Above them, pressed slacks. A coat, long, tailored. Whoever he was, he didn't belong on this street. Not at this hour. Not near her. She managed a whisper. "We're fine." He didn't budge. "It's below freezing." "I said we're fine," she repeated, though her lips trembled and her arms had stopped shaking, not from strength, but from numbness. The man knelt. Slowly, respectfully, keeping his distance. "I don't think your baby agrees." Emily looked at him then. Really looked. His face wasn't full of pity. It wasn't even shock. It was something harder to define, concern mixed with confusion, like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. She opened her mouth, but her throat clenched. All she could say was, "She's cold. I can help," the man said quietly. "If you'll let me." She looked back down at her baby. Still pale. Still too quiet. Emily held on tighter, as if the act itself could fight back the cold, the hunger, the hopelessness. Her breath came out shaky and shallow. Help? She had stopped expecting that word to mean anything. But tonight, under flickering streetlight and a sky that didn't care, she heard it again, and for the first time in a long time, didn't turn away. Not yet. Not this time. Emily heard the footsteps before she saw him, measured, unfaltering, too sure for a stranger on a cold street. She tensed instinctively, lowering her eyes, shielding her baby as though her body alone could ward off the world. Then, the sound stopped. Right in front of her. She didn't look up. Shame rooted her gaze to the ground. Her baby whimpered weakly beneath the towel, limbs barely moving. Emily blinked hard, hoping the man would simply walk away. He didn't. Instead, something soft, something heavy and warm, settled over her shoulders. Her breath caught in her chest. The man had taken off his coat. It wasn't just any coat. The material whispered of wealth. Thick, lined with cashmere, still carrying the heat of his body. The scent of leather and cedar clung faintly to it. It was warmth. It was dignity. It was everything she hadn't felt in hours. Her trembling fingers reached up, brushing the collar as if to confirm it was real. Her mouth parted, but no sound came out. Then, the man knelt in front of her. He didn't speak immediately. He didn't ask questions. He simply waited until she looked at him, not in demand, but in quiet invitation. And finally, she did. His face was clean-shaven, his eyes an intense shade of gray. But what struck her wasn't his wealth or his appearance. It was the way he looked at her. Not like she was broken. Not like she was trash. Just human. His voice was low, steady. "Let's get you and your baby somewhere safe." Emily blinked, unsure if she'd heard him right. Her lips moved silently, unsure how to respond. The cold had numbed more than her hands. It had stolen her instincts, her defenses. She hesitated. But there was something about the way he said it. Not just kindness, certainty. As though safety wasn't a question but a promise. Slowly, she nodded. He stood and extended a hand, not forcefully, just patiently. With great care, she shifted her baby closer to her chest, still wrapped in the towel and now protected by the coat. Her legs barely cooperated as she tried to rise. She hadn't stood in what felt like hours. But the man steadied her, his grip firm and respectful. They moved together toward the black car park just feet away. The back door opened silently. The interior glowed with soft amber light and the comforting hum of warmth. She slid inside. The moment the door closed behind her, she felt it, the stillness. No wind, no biting air, no noise. Just heat and silence. Her baby stirred and let out a soft coo. Her tiny hand, once ice-cold, flexed against Emily's chest. Emily's breath shook. Her hands hovered around her child, as though she were rediscovering her. The baby blinked sleepily, cheeks already flushing pink from warmth. And then it hit her. Tears welled up, uninvited. They broke through in a sudden, aching rush. Her shoulders shook, not from cold now, but from the collapse of every wall she'd held up all night. She cried, not from fear, not from despair, but from something even more powerful. Relief. The man closed the driver's side door. The car rolled forward. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Emily didn't feel like she was running from something. She was being taken towards something. Safety. Emily stepped out of the elevator and into a space that didn't seem real. The cold streets, the bruises on her arms, even the numbness in her toes felt miles away. Marble floors stretched out beneath her feet. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the room in moonlight. Everything gleamed, glass, gold, and silence. She stood frozen, her baby cradled in her arms, still wrapped in his coat. Mr. Grant, she'd heard the driver call him that, didn't say much. Just a soft welcome before walking ahead. He didn't explain anything, nor did he ask anything of her. He simply guided her into a guest room as if he'd done this before. As if helping a freezing stranger was just part of his routine. Moments later, a kind-faced woman arrived. She introduced herself as Maria. A nanny, soft-spoken and warm. She gently offered to care for the baby while Emily rested. Emily clutched her child tighter, unsure, but one look at Maria's steady hands and calm eyes settled something inside her. She nodded. Then came the hot bath, the softness of the robe, the quiet clink of cutlery as a tray of fresh, warm food was placed beside her. She sat on the edge of a bed that probably cost more than she made in a year and stared at the meal. Roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, a bowl of soup. She cried again. Not because she was sad this time, but because everything, every comfort, every gentle gesture felt foreign. Like she wasn't allowed to have it. Like someone would walk in any second and say, "Sorry, mistake." After the bath and the food, she curled under the covers. Her baby, freshly changed and fed, slept nearby in a crib that hadn't been there an hour ago. She stared at the ceiling, wondering what she'd done to deserve this. And what it would cost. The next time she saw Mr. Grant, he was in the living room. He stood near the window, looking out over the city. The skyline glittered behind him, but his expression was unreadable. She approached hesitantly, her feet bare against the polished floor. "Thank you," she said softly. He nodded but didn't turn around. "You needed help. That's all." His voice was calm again, composed, but distant. He offered no smile, no warm explanation. Just the same gentle mystery he'd carried since the sidewalk. "Why me?" she asked. "You don't know me." He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Some debts can't be paid with money." It didn't make sense. Not yet. That night, after she checked on her baby one more time, she wandered the penthouse quietly. The silence had a weight to it. Everything was too clean, too untouched. As though no one really lived there. Just existed. Then she saw it. A photograph. Resting on a side table near the fireplace. It was a woman, young, beautiful, smiling as she held a little girl in her lap. There was something familiar in her face. Not her features, but her energy, exhausted but radiant, just like Emily felt on her good days. Emily picked it up. Her fingers brushed the glass. Mr. Grant's voice startled her. Someone I failed to protect. She turned to find him standing a few feet behind her, his eyes locked on the photo. He didn't explain. He didn't need to. There was grief in his voice. Deep, settled grief. And guilt. Emily placed the photo back gently. Questions filled her mind, but for once, she stayed quiet. She was no longer afraid. But she realized something far more intriguing. This man had rescued her, but he was haunted. And now, she wasn't sure who was saving who. Emily awoke to a quiet room bathed in soft morning light. The warmth of the penthouse wrapped around her like a cocoon, so unlike the harsh chill of the streets just hours before. As she shifted, she noticed a small pile of neatly folded clothes on the chair beside her bed, fresh, clean, and clearly chosen with care. Nearby, a sealed container of baby formula sat waiting, along with a handwritten note resting atop the items. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded the paper. The message was simple, yet it carried weight heavier than any she'd read in years. You are safe. Rest as long as you need. Tears stung her eyes. Not from despair, but from a fragile hope she hadn't dared to nurture in a long time. For a moment, She wanted to stay buried beneath the covers, letting the quiet kindness wash over her. But the questions in her mind screamed louder than the comfort around her. Who was this man who had plucked her from the cold and darkness? Why had he chosen her? She cradled her baby close, inhaling the soft scent of his hair, then slipped quietly out of the room to find him. Downstairs, the penthouse kitchen gleamed with morning light. Mr. Grant was there, already seated with a simple breakfast laid out, fresh fruit, eggs, and toast. He looked up as she entered, calm but expecting. Emily's voice was steady, though her heart pounded. "Who are you, really?" He hesitated, then nodded as if acknowledging a truth he had long wrestled with himself. "My name is Jonathan Grant. I own a few tech companies, startups, innovations in AI, and software." She blinked, processing the unexpected revelation. His attire, the penthouse, even the coat, all pieces now fitting into a puzzle she hadn't seen before. Jonathan continued, his voice low but clear. "Years ago, my sister lived a life very different from mine. She was alone, struggling. The streets were cruel to her. She had a baby, a little girl." Emily's breath caught, instinctively clutching her child tighter. "She was abused, neglected, cast out, like you. And her baby, my niece, didn't survive." His eyes darkened with pain. "I wasn't there. I couldn't save them. That failure, it's haunted me every day." Emily searched his face, seeing the raw weight of grief and guilt. This wasn't a man offering charity out of obligation. This was someone driven by something deeper, a need for redemption, for healing wounds left open by loss. "For years," he said, "I've quietly helped women like her. Not for praise or recognition. I stay in the shadows because it's not about me. It's about giving someone a chance I couldn't give her." She nodded slowly, overwhelmed by the sincerity in his voice and the enormity of his pain. "But why me?" she asked softly. Jonathan's gaze met hers, steady and unwavering. "Because your story broke through everything I built around myself. You reminded me that sometimes, saving one person can mean saving yourself too." Emily felt a strange calm settle inside her, a fragile connection forged from broken pasts and unexpected kindness. She looked down at her baby, then back at Jonathan. The penthouse no longer felt like a strange fortress, but a sanctuary built from shared wounds and unspoken hopes. For the first time in a long time, Emily allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something different, not just survival, but healing. Jonathan pushed his plate aside and stood. "Take your time. You're safe here." And for the first time, Emily understood the true meaning of those words. Emily woke slowly to soft sunlight spilling through the tall windows. The penthouse felt like a world apart from the cold streets she'd left behind. On the chair next to her bed, she found a small stack of freshly folded clothes, a container of baby formula, and a handwritten note resting delicately on top. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. "You are safe. Rest as long as you need." The words echoed in her mind, fragile and yet powerful enough to crack open the walls she had built around her heart. For so long, survival had been her only focus, getting through each day with her baby in her arms, never daring to hope for kindness or safety. Now, wrapped in the warmth of a stranger's care, she felt something unfamiliar stir inside. Hope. Her baby stirred in his sleep, and instinctively she reached for him, holding him close as she rose and quietly left the room. The silence of the penthouse was vast, but not empty. It was heavy with unspoken stories. She found Mr. Grant in the kitchen, sitting at a sleek table where the morning light made the polished surfaces gleam. A simple breakfast awaited, but the questions in Emily's mind were far from simple. She swallowed her fear and asked, "Who are you, really?" He looked at her steadily, as if waiting for the moment he had rehearsed in his mind countless times. "Jonathan Grant," he said finally. "I'm a businessman, a tech billionaire. I own several companies that work on artificial intelligence and software." Emily blinked, the pieces clicking into place, the penthouse, the coat, the quiet authority he carried. But it was what came next that truly caught her breath. "My sister, she lived a life very different from mine. She struggled on the streets, alone, with a baby. She was abused and neglected, cast out into the cold just like you. Her baby didn't survive. I wasn't there to save them. I couldn't protect them." His voice faltered as pain flickered across his face, but his eyes held a steady resolve. "That failure has haunted me. Every day. Since then, I've done what I can to help women in crisis, always searching for someone I could truly save." Emily's heart tightened. She felt the weight of his grief, the burden of his guilt. This was no random act of charity. It was a man's quest for redemption, a chance to heal wounds that time had not touched. "Why me?" she whispered, barely able to meet his gaze. "Because your story broke through everything I've built around myself. You reminded me that saving someone else can sometimes save you, too." Emily looked down at her sleeping baby and back to Jonathan, feeling a fragile thread of connection forming between them. The penthouse was no longer a strange, unfamiliar place. It was a sanctuary, a place where two broken souls could begin to mend. Jonathan pushed his plate aside and stood. "Take all the time you need. You and your baby are safe here." As Emily watched him walk away, she realized something profound. Safety wasn't just a place, it was the courage to trust again, to believe in kindness after pain. It was the beginning of a chance to rebuild not just her life, but her heart. That night, alone in the quiet penthouse, Emily whispered to her baby, "We're going to be okay." And for the first time in a long while, she truly believed it. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know where you are watching from and drop your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Emily's journey and Mr. Grant's unexpected kindness? Which moment touched you the most? Your support helps us bring more powerful stories to life. Stay tuned for the next chapter as Emily's life takes new turns. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update.